Are you watching this? He is a serial killer. He murdered 20 women. This is Mohan, Cyanide Mohan, and in the next few minutes, you'll understand why the world calls him that. Between 2003 and 2009, one man moved from town to town in Karnataka, leaving behind a trail of lifeless bodies. The world didn't even notice, not at first, because these women died without a scream, without a clue. 20 confirmed victims, maybe more. And every single one died the same way. With one small pill, a dose of cyanide, slipped quietly into their hands, right after sex. They never stood a chance. Mohan Kumar had perfected a pattern. He targeted women who were poor, unmarried, and desperate to escape abusive families or social shame. He approached them through matrimonial ads, letters, or word of mouth. Sometimes he'd pose as a government worker, other times as a school teacher, always someone respectable. He promised marriage, promised a future, promised that they'd elope and start fresh, just the two of them. He arranged secret meetings, took them to lodges, bus stands, temples, and isolated hotels. Then, just after sleeping with them, he'd hand over a pill with a casual whisper. "Take this, you won't get pregnant." That one line sealed their fate. The women would swallow it, trusting him. Within minutes, they'd start vomiting, convulsing, struggling to breathe as the cyanide melted their insides. And while they choked on their last breaths, Mohan would watch silently. No panic, no guilt, just calculation. Then he'd collect their gold jewelry, their phones, their bags, and walk away like nothing happened. Let's take you to September 20th, 2009. Bajima, a 28-year-old woman from Mysuru, had been chatting with Mohan for weeks. She was unmarried, under pressure from family, and eager to start a new life. Mohan convinced her they should elope. He booked a small room in a lodge. They checked in as husband and wife. That night, they had sex. And afterward, just as he always did, Mohan reached into his bag. He handed her a small white tablet and said calmly, "Take this. You won't get pregnant." Big Yarma smiled, trusting him, and swallowed the pill with water. Within minutes, her body started shutting down. First the nausea, then violent vomiting. She fell to the floor, gasping, her body shaking uncontrollably. Mohan stood nearby, watching. No attempt to help, no emotion. When she finally stopped moving, he took her jewelry, wiped his fingerprints, locked the door behind him, and walked away into the crowd. This wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last. After every killing, he'd sell the jewelry, disappear for a few weeks, then scan the streets, bus stops, or matrimonial ads for his next target. The same script, the same ending. And every time, it worked. He'd repeat this 20 times over 6 years, changing cities, fake names, and stories. No one suspected a thing. To the world, he looked like a harmless, unmarried schoolteacher. But to 20 women, he was death in disguise. As one investigator would later say, he had found a method that worked perfectly, and he kept using it. Mohan didn't chase women in crowds or hunt them at night. He waited. He found women who were vulnerable, often from rural backgrounds, often with broken families, and always desperate to be loved. He knew they wouldn't ask too many questions. They were already halfway to escape. All he had to do was promise them the rest. One didn't chase his victims. He waited for desperation to bring them to him. There were no bloody crime scenes, no scream, no evidence left behind. Silo kills silently but savagely. And that's what made Mohan more terrifying than most serial killers. His brutality was buried under simplicity. A room, a promise, a pill, and then just silence. Mohan didn't need a weapon. He used trust as his murder weapon. In the end, he became known across India not just as a murderer, but as something worse. Cyanide Mohan, a man who turned the idea of love into a death sentence. He had no gun, no knife, just one pill and a heart that never beat for anyone. 20 women died, believing they were about to start a new life. But all they got was one final lie. The victims with no names and approximate ages. Anitha, 22 years old. Baby Nayak, 25 years old. Kamala, age not specified. Wila, age not specified. Purnima, age not specified. Savitri, age not specified. Shanta, 35 years old. Sharada, 24 years old. Shishakala, 28 years old. Sujata Potolkinson, she's 28 years old. Sunanda, 25 years old. Sonita, age not specified. Vinutha, 24 years old. Yashada, 26 years old. 5. Victims, names available, photos not found. Despite deep research across news archives, court records, and journalistic features, the following 5 women have no publicly available photos. However, their names have surfaced in trial records and investigative reporting. Pushpavith, alias Pushpa, from Kasaragod. Kaveri Manku, from Madikeri. Rashmi, college student who nearly escaped. Unnamed woman from Mysuru Lashkar bus stand, confirmed by forensic case files. Unnamed woman from Bengaluru Kempegowda station. Part of the pattern, confirmed in legal notes. These were 15 faces we could recover. That brings the final number to 20. Just one pill and a heart that never beat for anyone. 20 women died believing they were about to start a new life. But all they got was one final lie. Fade in. A bus stand. A woman's bridal sandal lies abandoned near a restroom. Cut to silence. Then, police sirens. Narrator, calm but tense. It began as a coincidence. One woman found dead in Hassan, another in Mysuru, a third in Mangaluru, all found in similar places, lodges, bus stations, or public restrooms. All were dressed like brides. And all had one thing in common. They died quietly, with white foam at their mouths. Pattern in the shadows. At first, police treated them as isolated suicide. Women who had run away from home, perhaps ashamed, perhaps pregnant, and perhaps unable to cope. No signs of struggle. No wins. Just lifeless bodies, jewelry missing, and one disturbing detail: white froth around the mouth. But then the questions started piling up. Why were all these women dressed for a wedding? Why did no one hear them scream? And why in every single case was the man they were last seen with never found again? Across Karnataka, in Udupi, Mysuru, Mangaluru, Hassan, the police were noticing something strange. The same death, the same silence, and the same trail of nothing. The only lead was that the women had each checked into a room with a man, but his name was always different. At one lodge, he signed as Anand. At another, Ravi, then Prem, and sometimes Manjunath. Different names, different documents. Same face, just no one had noticed yet. It took the eyes of a low-ranking constable to change everything. He was going through the lodge registry and noticed that some of the phone numbers used to book the rooms were eerily similar. And when they started reviewing CCTV footage from different cities, the pieces clicked into place. The same man, same build, same walk, always seen entering the lodge with a woman in bridal clothes. And always seen leaving alone. From there, police began to chase ghosts, fake names, disconnected SIM cards, but the face remained the same. They worked backward from lodge entries, SIM card purchases, hotel ID, and slowly all the roads started pointing to one man, Mohan Kumar. The evidence speaks. Now that they had a suspect, they returned to the crime scenes. In multiple lodge rooms, packets were found in the dustbins, unmarked pill. In one case, a half-dissolved pill was found near the basin. It was sent for testing. The result? The post-mortem reports matched. All the women had died from cyanide poisoning. Even more disturbing, each body showed signs of recent sexual activity. And the bridal dresses, the jewelry receipts found in room bins, it all pointed to one thing. He made them believe they were getting married. He gave them a pill, pretending it was a contraceptive. And then he waited, closing in. By now the police knew this wasn't suicide. This wasn't an accident. This was murder, repeated, methodical, cold. And not just murder, a serial killer operating in silence, moving across cities without ever being caught. The face from CCTV, the watch receipts, the phone records, the cyanide. Everything was pointing at Mohan Kumar. But they still didn't have him. So they raised the alert. Every major bus stop, every hotel receptionist, every lodge keeper, every train station, all were told, watch for a man who comes in with a woman and leaves alone. Then, finally, they heard he was on the move again. But what happened next, that was the moment everything changed. Stand, then silence. It was October 21, 2009, a quiet afternoon at the Nelly Nadu bus stand near Vital Town, Dakshina Kannada district. People came and went. Some carried bags, some waited for the next bus. And one man stood there, watching the road, as if nothing in the world was wrong. Was Mohan Kumar. But that wasn't the name on the IDs in his pocket. When they approached him, he didn't run. He didn't resist. He didn't even blink. He was carrying multiple fake identity cards under different names, photographs of women, his next targets, maybe, and, most chilling of all, a packet of cyanide in his pocket. Mohan stood there calmly. He knew what this was about, but he said nothing. No panic, no questions, just silence. In the early hours of his interrogation, he denied everything. He claimed he didn't know the women, that he had no idea what cyanide was doing in his bag, that the photos were for something else. But then the police laid it out, lodge entries, phone call logs, SIM card purchases, witness accounts. And something changed. Mohan began to confess. Not with shame, not with guilt, but like a man reading out a list. Cold, mechanical, and deliberate. He admitted to murdering over 20 women. He described how he gained their trust, how he promised marriage, how he had sex with them, how he gave them cyanide-laced pills, claiming they were contraceptives, how he watched them die. He spoke without remorse, without hesitation. To the investigator sitting across from him, it was like listening to death itself speak through a calm voice. Legal proceedings begin. What followed next was one of the most complex criminal procedures in Karnataka's recent history. Since the murders had taken place in different cities, each case was filed and tried separately. His trials were spread across Bantwa Sessions Court, Mangaluru Sessions Court, Udupi Sessions Court. The charges were clear and stacked heavily against him. Ipso Pran, DICC. Section 32, murder. IPC Section 392, robbery. IPC Section 477, cheating. DIPSI 201, destruction of evidence. Each court heard its own version of horror. Forensic experts testified about the cyanide traces. Victims' families described how they vanished. The defense tried to argue inconsistencies, but the evidence was overwhelming. There was no doubt left. Mohan Kumar faced more than a dozen trials, each for a different woman he had killed. Between 2013 and 2016, courts across Karnataka delivered judgment after judgment. He was given. The judges described him as a cold-blooded killer, a man with no empathy, no guilt, no humanity, a threat to society who must never be allowed to walk free again. These were not spontaneous crimes. They were meticulously planned executions, and the law treated them as such. Post-sentencing status. Mohan appealed his death sentences to the Karnataka High Court. Some of the death penalties were upheld. A few were later commuted to life imprisonment. But the final result remained the same: death. What Mohan left behind wasn't just death. It was a trail of grief, silence, and questions that would haunt families for years. His crimes didn't just kill, they shattered entire households. They shook a society that never saw him coming. Because how do you explain the murder of 20 women? Not by force, not with blood, but through trust. Victim families' reactions. For the families, the grief was beyond words. Some daughters had been missing for months, years even. Families held on to hope, thinking maybe she had eloped, maybe she would call. Instead, what they received was a body, a name in the news, a courtroom photo. For many, they never even got to say goodbye. And when they learned how it happened, how their daughters were lied to, seduced, used, and then poisoned like animals, that grief turned to rage. Some family members spoke out. He fooled her. He fooled her, made her believe she was loved, and then threw her away, another father said. We raised her with everything we had, and one man ended her in a bathroom like she was nothing. The emotional toll was unbearable. But for many, there was also stigma. The shame of what people would say: she ran away, she was tricked. Some lost not only a loved one, but their standing in the community. For families who had little to begin with, the loss was not just emotional, it was financial. Some victims were breadwinners, others were all the family had. The Cyanide Mohan case will remain etched in the memories of many for years to come. It was a reminder of how far some criminals will go to manipulate and exploit vulnerable people. But it was also a story of justice, as the families of the victims were able to see the man responsible for their grief held accountable. This case forced an entire nation to confront difficult questions about trust, about silence, about how easy it still is for predators to hide in plain sight, and how important it is for us as a society to never stop asking questions. If you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more such stories that matter. Your support helps us keep raising awareness about crimes that often go unheard, but must never be forgotten. Thank you for watching.